So, like I said, what I love about Todd's story is that it's his effort to put Jesus squarely at the center of his life. And obviously there's struggles with that, and there can be a hard time with that, and that can be difficult. But I love the fact that he really tries to make that happen. And he does that by really capturing the heart of who Jesus is. And I think when we do that, when we can capture the heart of Jesus, we get a glimpse for what it truly means to be a Jesus follower and what it truly means to center our lives on Jesus. And I think so often, and I know I fall into this category a ton, and when I first was in seminary, it was a huge thing on my mind to say, if I can just be better, if I can just be a better person, if I can just do better. But what I have found over the years is that the more I try to do better, the harder it is to do better, and the more I fail at it. And I thought that following Jesus was just simply a checklist of sort of Jesus-y kinds of things. Like, hey, what if I just read my Bible? Not get anything out of it. I just need to read it. What if I watch Christian movies? What if I only listen to Christian music? What if I make sure that I go to as many events as possible? What if I just make sure that my language is clear? All of these things are really good. But if they don't get to the heart of who Jesus is, it's just a matter of doing better and not actually becoming more like Jesus. There's nothing wrong with the old WWJD, what would Jesus do? But if we're only focused on what Jesus would do, then we're going to forget the heart of who Jesus is. And that's what I want to do this morning, is I want to start a conversation this morning surrounding the idea of understanding what it means to follow Jesus. And I want to start to paint a portrait of a Jesus follower. Because if we're going to talk about what it means to follow Jesus, if we're going to talk about what it means to put Jesus at the center of everything, if we're going to build healthy relationships, if we're going to saturate our community with the gospel, we have to first start with the portrait of a Jesus follower and understanding what that looks like for us. And I believe that begins with a life centered on generosity. My wife and I celebrated yesterday 17 years. And it's hard to believe. We were actually laughing, looking back. Our kids wanted to see our old video. We had a DVD. We had to put the DVD in a DVD drive, and she's like, well, where's like the chapter? There wasn't even like chapters in the DVD. It was like you just had to play the DVD. And it was old and it was weird. And we always make the joke that weddings are so much better now than they were then. Ours is so old and so silly. And we look like such babies. In fact, I showed just the other day, she was digging through some old photos, and I showed a picture to Yule of Aaron and I when we were, she must have been in her early 20s. And he's like, looks at me, he's like, I don't even know who that is. Because I had hair and different glasses, and I tried to have like a goatee of some, it was weird. It wasn't right. And you look back at that and you think, man, where did the time go? Where did all of this go? And Erin is even after 17 years, is still something that I struggle with, that I have to get used to, because she is so determined to get as many things done in a single day as possible. She has to get it all done. She's a list maker and she's a list accomplisher. She will get it all done no matter what, and she will lose her mind if we're running out of time. Especially trying to get the kids out of the house. Trying to get 4 kids out of the house is quite the project. And it's like, go put your shoes on and get in the car, and they're running around in circles, riling up the dog. And it's like, what part of put your shoes on? We don't have time for this. We got to get going. We have to get out the door because we only have so much time, because suddenly Fort Wayne got busier. Is it just me? Or did it get busy around here? It used to take 20 minutes. Now it's like 35 minutes to get anywhere. I'm like, what is happening? So she is so dialed in to what time it is. In fact, just the other day, I've been looking for a new car. And I was looking for something that was not practical at all, but because I wanted it. And I'm looking and looking and looking. I mean, months were going by, and I couldn't find what I wanted for what I wanted to spend because I refused to spend a lot of money. And finally, my wife says to me, maybe you should change what you're looking for. And I'm like, no. And then she brings up the thing that I did not want to hear her bring up. Well, you do realize what's going to happen in 3 years. I'm like, oh, no. My oldest will be driving in 3 years. Like, no, this is not happening. Time, I'm like, what? And she actually told me the other day, she's like, I feel like we're losing time with our oldest. And so suddenly, the time that we're spending with her, we're like, no, we are grabbing onto this. We are taking this. Because time is one of those things that we can't make it, right? We can only make the most of it, and we can't stop it. We can only hope to enjoy it, and we hate to waste it. But Jesus calls us to something different with our time. He calls us to be generous with our time. And that's hard. I mean, if you think about it for a second, we only have, when your kid is born, you only have just over 6,500 days until they turn 18. That's not enough time. You only have an average of 16 hours a day to get everything you need done. That's assuming you get 8 hours of sleep. And what's the first thing you're willing to give up to get more time? Sleep. Because you need more time. There's never enough of it. But here's the thing. We can't talk about being generous. And we can't talk about being loving. We can't even talk about being a Jesus follower if we're not talking about time and being generous with our time. So this morning, we are going to begin to paint a portrait of a Jesus follower, but if we leave out our generosity of time, it becomes a picture without love, without compassion, and without grace. It becomes a picture without Jesus. I want to make sure we get that. Okay, I'm going to read that one more time. We are painting a portrait of a Jesus follower, and if we leave out the generosity of time, it's a picture without love, without compassion, and without grace. It's a picture without Jesus. And there's no one more generous of their time than Jesus. I want to spend some time this morning talking about a really, really, really cool story in John's gospel. Now, if you go through any of the gospels, spend 10 minutes reading any of them, and you're going to find out pretty quick that Jesus was incredibly generous with his time. But I want to focus on one really, really cool story that I think illustrates precisely what we're trying to get at this morning. So flip open to John chapter 11. Now, if you're familiar with John's gospel, you're familiar with the fact that John has really, really deep theological things going on in his gospel. There's all kinds of really cool things underneath the surface, and we could dig, and the nerd in me kind of wants to dig around and figure out all kinds of cool things, but that's not what we're going to do this morning. But we are going to focus squarely in, not just on the death of Lazarus, but we're going to focus in on Jesus' response to Lazarus' death. Okay, so in the very first part of chapter 11, Jesus gets word that Lazarus is sick and probably dying. Now that's bad news. Jesus does not need to be going back to Jerusalem. He's a wanted man. It's not wise. In fact, when he says we're going to go back, Jesus says, I'm sorry, let me back that up. When Jesus says we're going to go back, his disciples say, no, it's not a good idea. You don't need to be going there. And Jesus says we're going to go anyway. Now, wait a minute. This is Jesus. We've already seen in passages like Mark 7 and Matthew 8 and in John chapter 4, Jesus heals from a distance. This is Jesus. Oh, Lazarus is sick. Hold on, wait for it. Nope, not anymore. It's Jesus. So he doesn't have to go into a place where he's wanted, where he's going to get recognized. He doesn't have to worry about that. He can just say, poof, and Lazarus is fine. But But he doesn't do that. He goes. And by the time he gets there, Lazarus has been dead for like 4 days. They're already in the 30-day mourning period. He's already in the tomb. And Jesus arrives on the scene. Verse 21 in chapter 11. Lord, Martha, so Mary and Martha, said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now, God will give you whatever you ask. And Jesus says to her, your brother will rise again. Martha says, well, I know he's going to rise in the resurrection at the last day. And Jesus says, yeah, I know. But I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even though he dies. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? And she says, yeah, I get it. And even then, he allows Martha to be like, dude, if you were here, this wouldn't have been a problem. And Jesus is like, I know. I hear you. But it's going to be okay. Does Jesus heal Lazarus or raise Lazarus now? No. Why not? Why in the world is Jesus not just saying, yeah, you can stop mourning. It's okay. Jesus is here. Oh, it's okay. We got this covered. No big deal. Nope. Jesus waits. Mary receives word that she's back at home. Verse 32, when Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said the same thing. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Don't miss this. Verse 33. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Where have you laid him, he asked. Come and see, Lord, they replied. Jesus wept. And the Jews said, see how he loved them. Jesus wept. Jesus could have immediately, without delay, fixed the whole situation. But what does Jesus do first? Jesus sits down, basically, with Mary and Martha. Just says, I know this is hard. And allow me the opportunity to weep with you, to have compassion for you, to have patience with you. I mean, they're a little bit annoyed. Jesus, if you had been here, where have you been? You could have taken care of this. I know. Before he does anything, he comforts. He has compassion. He listens. And then, and only then, he heals. Jesus gave of his time first, because Jesus knows what we, I think, already intuitively understand, is that time spent here, where you're sitting down and you're engaging in conversation, you're hearing somebody else's story, you're understanding who they are and the world that they live in, you're giving of your time, your most valued possession, and the thing that you can't get more of and you can't get back. We've all been to the movie that you say to yourself, well, that's 2 hours I'm never going to get back. Jesus gives that. If you're a teacher, you know that students don't care about what you know until they know how much you care. And that only happens through time. If you're a business leader or a manager of some kind, you know that investment in the time of your people is far more valuable than anything else. And if you're a parent, you know that the time you spend with your kid is better than any Christmas present, any birthday present, anything that they put on, any clothes that you can put on their back, or the roof over their head, or anything else that you can give them. The time that you spend with them is the thing that they're going to remember the most. And that's exactly what Jesus does here. That's why we're so excited about some of the partnerships and relationships that we are developing. And one of those is with a Christian nonprofit organization called Remedy Live, and they are determined to further the conversation surrounding mental health. It's a conversation that we all need to be having in one capacity or another because it's important. And you're going to have an opportunity to actually come and see how it all works and the conversations that they can start as a family. On November 17th, on a Wednesday night, they're going to be here. And they have an incredible interactive thing that they do that actually gets a conversation in your family started. And you guys are going to have the opportunity to sign up for that today. But what I love most about them is that they take a question that we all ask and they make it deeper, more significant. When you walked in here, think about how many people you said, "How are you?" Probably almost everybody that you saw that you know. And your expected response is, "I'm fine. I'm good." But what would happen if you asked, "How are you really?" One word. One word invites somebody into this space and says, "I care about you. I love you. I want to hear your story. I want to spend some time with you." One word. How are you really? What an incredible thing that we have the opportunity to do. If nothing else gets to the heart of Jesus, that one word does. And does exactly what we are called to do. We're also partnering with NeighborLink, and it's an opportunity for you to use your time as a family or as individuals or whatever you choose to go give of your time to somebody else who desperately needs it. We're also going to be giving you guys a bit of a challenge this holiday season, not just to invite people to church, because that's cool and you should, but to build relationships with others and open up a space for them to join you here. And through your giving of time and investment into their lives, they get to see a glimpse of Jesus through you. And you're going to have an opportunity to engage in all of those things today. Because these things demand our time, they demand our patience, and that's why I think it's so hard for us, because we have to be patient and really read the scriptures and pour into the time, and we don't have time for that. And we have to spend time in prayer, and we don't have time for that. We have to spend time to hear others' stories, and sometimes we just don't have time for that. But the heart of Jesus is that we give of our time. Because we're painting a portrait of a Jesus follower. And if we leave out our generosity of time, we leave out love, compassion, and grace. We leave out Jesus. But the question is how do I do that? That sounds easy, Steve. Yeah, great. Spend more time with people. But my heart's not oriented that way. It's so hard. I want to hold on to it. I feel like I'm doing better. I'm trying to do better, but I can't do better because sin's pulling me back into my own version of self-worship, and it's hard, and I can't figure it out. It's hard, but there's one way we can do it. There's one way that we can help ourselves and help others. And you guessed it. It's the time that we spend with Jesus. Because, as I often say, the more time we spend with Jesus, the less attractive our sin becomes. The more time we spend with our Savior, the more we understand and see and get his heart, and the more our heart becomes like his. And then our actions, our giving over of our own time is just a natural outflow of being connected with him. Because what I love about this moment is that Jesus doesn't just care about Lazarus and his sisters. He's actually deeply moved for the entire state of humanity. In fact, the words that he used suggest that he's actually a little bit frustrated, even angry. He's weeping that death even has to be a thing. It's like he's saying, listen, I know this isn't even the way it's supposed to be. I get it. This is not the way I wanted it to be designed. And we're getting to a more perfect place. What better option than to say, hey, guess what? I'm going to resurrect Lazarus because it's a precursor to me resurrecting to give you new life. In this passage is the gospel. And Jesus doesn't just weep with us, he does something about it. He's actually doing something. He's listening to us. He's weeping with us. He hurts with us. He knows that when life gets too difficult for us, he knows that when things are out of control, when we're too lonely or we're too scared or we're not financially stable or there's something else going on in our lives, he's right there weeping with us. Even when we say, you should have been here, his response is, I am here. And I'm spending the time with you because the time that he spends with us is the most important thing that he can give us when we need it the most. We need him to spend time with us. Because we know, just like Martha knew, there's going to be a salvation experience. There's going to be a moment where Jesus is like, yeah, I'm going to give you. You've got eternity coming. If you believe in him, you have eternity with him coming all the time in the world with him. And he's giving it to us right here and right now. Jesus doesn't offer us just this moment in time. Jesus actually offers us eternity with him. To be generous with our time is to show people the gospel, is to show people the very heart of Jesus. How can we be loving like Jesus if we're not generous with our time? How can we sit and show compassion to others if we're not generous with our time? And how in the world can we have grace for others if we're not generous with our time? This morning, we are beginning to paint a portrait of a Jesus follower. And this time that we spend, and the time that we spend with others, is an opportunity to invite others into the gospel space. It's the time that we get to say, hey, I love you, and I need you to know who Jesus is. Because in your time of greatest need, he's going to be right there with you. It's not about doing better. It's about chasing after the heart of Jesus. I want to say that again because I want us to get that. It's not about just doing better. It's about chasing after the heart of who Jesus is. And what we see in this moment of Jesus raising Lazarus isn't just a really cool miracle, because Jesus can do those anytime he wants. It's Jesus giving of his time and showing love and compassion when they needed it the most. And that's who we're called to be. That's the kind of people that we get to be. You know, I kind of laugh at myself because to me, sometimes following Jesus seems so incredibly daunting. Like, how am I supposed to be perfect like Jesus? I can't stand it when Jesus says things like, be perfect as my Father in heaven is perfect. Thanks, Jesus. I can't do that. I can't always respond the right way. But you know what I can do? I absolutely can give somebody my time. I can do that. That's not hard. I want to hold on to it. I know. But man, I can give that. And in that moment, that person gets to see love and compassion. They get to see the heart of Jesus through us. That's the portrait of a Jesus follower. Let me pray. God, thanks so much for you, for your son. I thank you that you gave the ultimate gift of time with your son in flesh here on earth with us so that we could be with you. And God, I just ask that you continue to help us figure out what this whole Jesus-centered thing is all about. And that we have the opportunity to just simply give of our time. I just pray that you would help us do that. That you would help us take advantage of the opportunities that we have right in front of us. Whether it's a simple conversation, an act of service, whatever it is, that we get the motivation to say, yes, I can do that. And I can capture the heart of who you are and how much you love us. And we can love others through that. As always, it's in the powerful and precious name of Jesus Christ, our salvation. Amen.